It was raining hard the night my life cracked open. The kind of rain that erases sidewalks and pride, and there I was in a city park, a billionaire on a splintered bench with a screaming 4-month-old. People think money buys shelter from storms, but when your son won't stop crying and your hands won't stop shaking, no driver or doorman can step in for you. Then I heard a small voice under a bright yellow umbrella. "Mommy, why is he sleeping here?" And a pediatric nurse named Amara said, as if it were the simplest thing in the world, "Come with us, I can help." I'll be honest, 3 days earlier my ex Rachel had left baby Lucas at my door with a diaper bag and a note that said she couldn't do it anymore. And I did what men like me do. I hired the best, I threw money at it. I tried to fix the problem like it was a product bug. Every nanny lasted an hour before Lucas howled them out the door, and I sat there feeling like the king of nothing. You know what I mean? In Amara's apartment. Thin walls, warm light. The faint smell of soap and soup. She took Lucas from my arms and he melted like a knot finally undone. "How did you do that?" I asked, stunned and a little ashamed. "Experience," she said, "and maybe he's tired of being scared. Babies feel everything we feel." She gave me a mug, a sweatshirt 2 sizes too big a place to sit. And for the first time in days, I exhaled. "Are you trying to fix a problem? Or understand a person?" she asked, not judging, just placing the question on the table. "There's a difference." Her little girl Sophie, padded out in unicorn pajamas, peeked into the travel crib and whispered, "Is he going to live with us now?" And I swear, my heart made a sound I'd never heard before. Morning came soft and ordinary. Coffee, eggs, a calm baby. And I realized I hadn't slept so deeply since college. "You should have woken me," I muttered. "You needed rest," she said, bouncing Lucas with one hip, like it was a language she spoke. "Babies borrow our nervous systems. When you're calm, he can be calm." Sophie squinted at me over her cereal bowl. "Morning, Daddy." "Christopher." And when I choked on coffee, she shrugged. "If you're taking care of the baby, that means you're a daddy. Kids say the truth out loud while we stall." That day, Amara taught me the basics. How to hold him without clenching. How to hear the difference between hungry and tired. How to burp without fear. And each tiny success was a rope thrown across a canyon. At the grocery store, I learned about nipple shapes and flow rates. I pushed a cart for the first time in years, and when the cashier recognized my name from a magazine cover, I braced for the usual shift in the room. "Does it change anything?" I asked in the car. "It explains some things," she said, eyes forward. "When you can hire people to do everything, you never learn to do anything yourself. Is that judgment? Understanding. Some problems aren't solved by money. They're solved by time and patience and love." Yeah, that happened. A billionaire learning humility in aisle 7. 3 days bled into a rhythm. I fixed a dripping faucet with a tutorial while Lucas watched from his bouncy seat like a tiny foreman. And when the last drop finally didn't fall, I felt prouder than closing a 9-figure deal. We ate spaghetti at a wobbly table. I washed dishes and I heard myself say, "This feels like home," before I could edit it into something cooler. "Love makes homes, not things," Amara said, and the words stuck to my ribs. The next week I blurted out a job offer. Move-in, great salary, no more night shifts. And the room chilled a few degrees. "Are you trying to take care of us?" she asked. "Or make this easier to accept by turning it into a transaction?" I stared at my hands. I don't know how to accept help without paying for it. I don't know how to be in a family without drawing up terms. She didn't flinch. "I'll consider it, if we set boundaries." She kept her apartment. The pay stayed fair, not flattering. Weekdays at my place, weekends at hers. And I answer to your son, not your calendar. You ever have someone hand you dignity with both hands and tell you to hold on tight? That was my moment. The penthouse changed when they arrived, not because the furniture moved, but because the air did. Sophie pressed her face to the glass. It's like living in the clouds, while Amara walked the rooms like a general planning supply lines. Too much space makes people feel far away. Let's keep the living room small. Dinner became an hour I protected like oxygen. We cooked together. She taught, I tried. Sophie set the table with fierce concentration. And Lucas tracked us with wide eyes as if he already knew what family looked like. I discovered I could hum the same dumb tune for 20 minutes, until he sighed himself to sleep. And in those laps around the living room, I understood what presence actually means. Not gifts or gestures, but the repetition of love until the body believes it's safe. When I asked if I could go to Sophie's parent-teacher conference, she lit up in a way that made my chest hurt in the good way, and for the first time I sat in a tiny chair and felt proud of a kid who wasn't biologically mine. People think the big moments change you, but it's the small ones that do. The sticky fingers, the math worksheet, the goodnight whisper at a doorway you never had before. Then the twist, a custody petition from Rachel. Her lawyer called our home chaotic, called Amara. A questionable influence painted me as a man who brought strangers into an infant's life because I could. I wanted to rage, but Amara squeezed my hand. Evidence, not anger. In court, the AC hummed, the fluorescent lights made everything look tired. And when Amara took the stand, she stood straighter than anyone in the room. I didn't move in with a man I barely knew, she said, voice steady. I accepted a job to help a baby who needed consistent care. I kept my apartment, I set boundaries, I show up. The cross-examination came sharp. You targeted a wealthy man, didn't you? And she answered with the kind of quiet that makes people lean forward. No. I helped a frightened father in the rain. If he'd been broke, I'd have done the same because it was right. My assistant testified how I rearranged board meetings to make bath time. Our neighbor described our evening stroller loops, and a family therapist watched us at home and told the judge I rarely see a child this securely attached. Multiple consistent caregivers can be protective. When it was my turn, I didn't read from notes. 4 months ago, I was a man who could close a deal and couldn't calm a baby, I said. The difference now is not money, it's presence. I show up at 3 a.m. I sing until I lose my voice, I make mistakes, and I keep going. If the law is about what's best for a child, look at my son. He isn't confused, he's safe. The judge spoke slowly, the way people do when they want words to land. Primary custody to me, supervised visits for Rachel, our current arrangement in Lucas's best interest. And when the gavel fell, I realized I'd been holding my breath for months. Peace returned in small circles. On a Friday night after the kids were down, I set a ring box on the coffee table and didn't kneel or give a speech. I don't want to do this because it looks better in a file. I said I want to do it because you taught me what home actually is. Are you ready for all of it? Mia, Lucas, the mess and the slow days, Amara asked, and I laughed because that's exactly what I wanted. Yes, we got married in the living room with takeout and a homemade cake that leaned a little, and Lucas chose that exact day to wobble from my arms to hers, while everyone cheered like he'd solved world peace. Sophie placed her tiny hand on ours and said, "Now we're all connected," and it felt less like a ceremony and more like a promise we'd already been keeping. For a while it was quiet and good. Pancakes on Sundays, soccer on Saturdays, emails I answered after bedtime instead of during. You know what I mean. That kind of good. And then life asked another hard question. Months later, a letter arrived from Rachel. Therapy, steady work, volunteer shifts, no demands. Just a request for a supervised hour here and there, a chance to be something more than a ghost in her son's story, to attend his birthday without speeches or photos. I read it 3 times. Amara didn't tell me what to do. She just sat close enough that our knees touched. And Sophie wise the way 6-year-olds are asked. Does forgiveness make us safer or just nicer? I don't have a perfect answer. I know babies feel what we feel. I know the law protected our home because we proved it was good. And I know the same kindness that saved me on a rainy night depends on boundaries, or it eats you alive. We set conditions, we set consequences. We started small. Maybe that makes me naive. Maybe it makes me a father who wants his son to grow up with fewer ghosts, maybe both. Here's where I leave it with you. If it were your family, would you open the door a crack for a mother who failed and is trying, or would you lock it to protect the peace you bled to build? Is a chosen family less real than a traditional one? Does justice look like a wall or a blanket at 2 a.m.? Drop your take in the comments. Tell me where you draw the line, what you've seen in your own life, what you'd teach a kid about love and second chances. I'll be there reading because this isn't just my story anymore, it's ours.